Seated. Well, friends, welcome. This is the end of our Advent series. We have had an Advent series going on for the past 4 weeks, and all on the book of Isaiah. And so this is the final one, the coming of the light. And so it may seem a little bit odd to you that you didn't get the Christmas story tonight, right? You didn't, it's not here. You aren't going to hear it. We're not doing it. That's kind of strange. That's unusual because every other Christmas in your whole life, you've probably gotten to hear the Christmas story read during the worship service. From Luke chapter 2, you're not going to hear that tonight. And I want you to pay attention to that. I want you to pay attention to how you experience that. Some of you may say, hey, that's kind of fresh. That's new. That's all right. I like that. Some of you may not even notice. In fact, you may be sleeping already. Others may find that change a little disruptive, a little concerning. And so I just want you to pay attention to that. Because the reality is, Christmas is so full of traditions, right? So full of traditions. We have all kinds of traditions around Christmas, rich Christmas traditions that we want to keep. And when they get changed, oh my goodness, it can cause loss. It can cause confusion. It can cause a little bit of anxiety. Think for a moment about that great Christmas movie, Christmas Vacation, right? Chevy Chase. Clark Griswold gets a little tense when his traditions are messed with. And maybe some of you are like that. Because what happens is we want things to be so perfect. We want the tradition to be lived out exactly the way we remember it. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And friends, when it does, when things go totally awry, take a moment to breathe and try and be present in that moment. Because what happens is sometimes we get so distracted and so distraught over those changes that we forget about what's happening in the present. We miss the present moment. And so if you find yourself in that, just take a breath and just be present. Because Christmas is kind of a magical time for a lot of people, right? It's the greatest of all holidays for most people. Some beautiful memories that we have. I had this one Christmas, I actually lived on Lake Wissota when I was a little kid. And I was about 4. There were 5 of us under the age of 8 living in this 2-bedroom cottage on Lake Wissota. And I remember Christmas Eve, we had dinner, we unwrapped the gifts after doing the dishes, of course, by hand, because they didn't have dishwashers back then. And we went to bed and couldn't get to sleep. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? That anxiety of, oh, we're so excited, Santa's coming. And I finally must have dozed off, only to be awakened around midnight by this noise, thinking it's Santa Claus, right? It was my dad. He was telling me that my grandparents were coming up and were going to stay with us, and we just needed to stay put. I didn't know what he was talking about. That morning, Christmas morning, we found out we had a new sister. My mom gave birth to Teresa Joy that night, and so that's always been one of those great Christmas memories that I have. And yet, for a lot of people, Christmas can be a really painful time, a time of great challenge. And so, there's lots of different positive things that are going to be going on in households all around the world tonight, right? There's going to be some of those magic ones like you'd see on a commercial where someone receives a little box and they open it and there's a ring inside and a proposal goes along with it, right? There's going to be some of that tonight. And there's going to be some folks who are going to open the door, and there is going to stand somebody they haven't seen for a long time. Maybe they've been deployed or whatever, and it's a big surprise. They show up at the door, and their hearts are just overflowing with thankfulness. And like my mom, there are going to be some people tonight who give birth. They're going to be giving birth to a child this evening. So all kinds of really positive things going on. There's going to be some folks who this is going to be a painful night, right? It's not going to be all full of those great things like we just talked about. Some of them, there are going to be some houses where somebody is going to come out to their family for the first time about their gender identity, and it's going to be a really tough conversation. There are going to be some folks tonight who are going to be reminded about these broken relationships, right? The absence of the other because of something that has happened, and they're just going to be reminded of that. And tonight there are going to be some people, some of you even here, that are going to be celebrating Christmas for the first time without that person who's been with you your whole life. And those are tough times. And for those people who find this to be such a magical time and a really positive thing, listen to the people who are not having such a good time, right? For those people who this is painful, listen and hear what's going on in their lives and provide them a little bit of that light shining into their darkness through this painful time. Because light is this power that we celebrate tonight, right? The coming of the light into the world, God incarnate, completely vulnerable in the form of a baby born in Bethlehem, and a way that God shows us this incredible love that God has for us. So you say, no birth story. What's that about? Really, tell me about that. I mean, if you got a Bible, open it up to Luke 2. You'll see, what you're going to miss tonight. There's no decree. There's no Emperor Augustus tonight. There's no first registration. No Joseph who has to leave Nazareth and head out with his pregnant betrothed to Bethlehem. There's no inn. There's no manger. There's no baby born. There's no shepherds with angels crying the news. There's no praising and exclaiming this great news of great joy that's given to all people. You're going to miss all of that tonight. Sorry. But it brings me to a great question. What if you never heard that story? What if you are here today? What if you've never heard that story? Or never believed it, never kind of knew about this Jesus who brings this light into the world? What if you never heard it before? What difference would that make in your life? What difference would that make to December 24th, right? It'd be huge. Just think, if you had not heard that story, how could you understand that incredible love that those two people with the ring are going to share tonight, or that surprise visitor at the door, that understanding of that deep relationship that you can have with another person? Who or what would you lift up your praises to at the birth of a child if you had never heard this story? How would you have the courage to be completely vulnerable, to share your deepest, darkest secrets with your family if you didn't trust in this love and grace of God? How would you go through the pain of the absence in a broken relationship if you didn't have that hope that God has for you? Or if you've lost that loved one and you had no assurance of that everlasting life that God gives, where would we be? Because tonight we celebrate that light, That light coming into the world, that light that shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. It doesn't mean there isn't darkness, right? We all stumble through the darkness of this life every so often. But that light can never be put out. It's never absolute darkness, no matter how bad things seem. It's never totally absent of light. And that light, that gift that God has given us, gets greater and greater as we live in community and understand that incredible love. We are celebrating God coming into the world today. This world that is full of darkness, but he's bringing that light, and Jesus is that light. That light that shines so bright, that love that taught us how to live our lives, how to love one another, that loved us so much that this love gave its life for us, right? And so that we can have that gift, that we don't have to worry about stuff. Christ died for you. And that's important to remember this night. Christ came to this earth for you. So tonight, as we experience Jesus' presence here in the body and the blood, the bread and the wine, remember that this is God's light and life given for you. And then after you leave here tonight, after you go home, find one of those Bibles in the house. Right before you open up your gifts tonight, I encourage you, open it up to Luke chapter 2. Just verses 1 through 20, that's all you got. And remember that incredible story of that love coming in as light to our life.